how to mix all of those together, how to do this in a way that doesn't overwhelm you. Because right now you might think, well, that's a bit overwhelming. I have to think about this, the alpha vibe. I don't even really understand precisely how it works. It will come with time, don't worry. And it will come up by themselves when you apply what we see later. So don't worry for now. The more you go, the more clear it will become. And the more you practice, the more clear it will become as well. But for now, how to just combine those things in a way that doesn't overwhelm you. To answer this question, I'm going to tell you how the learning process works. Precisely when you apply this to this stuff, what I'm going to talk to you now, what I'm going to tell you now, you can apply it to any skill you want to learn. But here it's going to be really important to master this, to understand this in order to master the thing that we've just saw. So pay attention, let's do it. It's going to be all about creativity. Let's think about creativity in the following way. Creativity is about the ability to find imaginary, mental, conceptual, let's just say mental elements. So this is a very abstract definition. And let's represent an element like this, like a cross. Or you know what, let's do it like a point instead. Or a point or a cross. Let's stay with a cross. Maybe it's more visual for you. It's a cross. That's a mental element. May it be in your kinesthetic channel, may it be in your auditory channel, may it be in your visual channel. It doesn't matter. It's just imaginary. It's a mental thing. And creativity is about the ability to create those elements, to manifest them, to make them appear in your mind. And the more creative you are, the higher number of elements you can make appear in your mind. Up. Now you're becoming more creative in this case. Now let's say that all of those elements. Okay, let's do another sketch. So this one is done. Now you want to apply a boundary to your creativity. For example, I want to find elements that are in alignment with the tool of escalation. So I want to create things in my mind that are related to escalation. So for example, just ways to escalate. Basically, that's how it is. That's what it means in concrete terms, in a language that is more understandable. I just want to find ways to escalate. So here you want to apply a boundary to your creativity. So I want to manifest in my mind elements that are within this boundary, which is the boundary of escalation. So everything I want to create now, I want it to be about escalation. So it has to not be elements here, which can be about anything else than escalation. For example, dinner. What I will eat at the dinner, it's not related to the boundary that I'm interested to create in. And actually, this boundary, it will be what we call a creative constraint. It's a constraint about what you want your creativity to happen within or not. This is a creative constraint. It's going to be very important. So let's say now you have the idea that pops into your mind of just letting her pause and looking at her in the eyes with a smile. Up. Then you have another idea that pops, for example, getting closer. And each of the things, for example, getting closer, I will put it here. Let's zoom it. Actually, we can describe it even better. So if we put it into, instead of a cross, we put it like this, so we can zoom inside. There is sub-elements. Okay, you get closer, but how exactly? With what facial expression? At what rhythm? With what speed? How do you move your shoulders when you do it? What exactly do you put your attention on when it comes to the visual channel? Do you look at her in the eyes, but are you focused on her forehead, her hair, her pupils? there's many elements proper to it. So it's as if it is an infinite, like there is the creative boundary, and then you have elements which have elements, and it goes toward infinity until the end, until emptiness, as we've seen before. Anything can be seen either as an element or either as a part that a whole, that contains the element, set and element. Remember, everything can be seen as both of them at the same time. So here we have this creative constraint. Let's forget about the things. So yeah, just letting a pause and looking at her with a smile, getting closer, maybe saying what you would like to do right now, and then can be more precise. So you have many elements that appear in your consciousness, in your mind, within this boundary, which is I want to escalate. Make sense? Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And so the more elements you have that appear per unit of time, the more creative you are. Let's define it like this. Your level of creativity is defined by the number of elements, let's say of mental elements, so that it's more clear. The number of mental elements that you can manifest per unit of time. So for example, if you take the unit of time of 1 second, if you can manifest 4 ideas about how to escalate, 4 different ideas about how to escalate in 1 second. So in 5 seconds you have 20 ideas. Then you are more creative. You are more creative than if you have only 2 per second. Do you see it? And the moments where you are not creative is the moment where actually you have 0. Nothing comes. This is the shit. Here it's complicated. You're not being creative, so you rely on other things to generate happiness. This is your level of creativity within this boundary. So what you want to do is to increase your general level of creativity. So this, you want to make it go to 1 million per second. Really, you want to make it explode, your level of general creativity. But how do you do this? How do you do that? In order to do this, we need precisely creative constraints. So instead of trying to generate elements about anything, it's overwhelming. Maybe I will put you the link to a YouTube video on the TED channel, which is about creative constraints. Yeah, I will put you some links of those videos. I will do this. You can watch them. Actually, you can pause the video now and watch them if you want, or either watch them after. You need to apply creative constraints so that it's easier to find elements and be creative. You will understand this by watching the videos that I'm going to link under this video. So precisely by putting a boundary, like, okay, I'm going to try my creativity within the boundary of escalation. You need to do this. To do this, you need to put a boundary. You need to set a constraint so that now you can work on your overall level of creativity. And by working on your creativity within a boundary, within a constraint, actually you improve your general global creativity. So this is the way to go. So there is 2 interests. There is 2 purpose of working on your creativity within a constraint, such as escalation. First, it helps you to be more creative. Watch out the video about the TED Talk to understand this. It helps you to be more creative and thus increase your overall creativity. But more than this, it helps you to actually develop your creativity specific to this constraint. So if you set the constraint of escalation and you work on your creativity within this constraint, within this field, besides improving your overall creativity, you improve specifically, drastically your creativity within escalation. So let's be strategic, and instead of just trying to set random creative constraints to improve your global creativity, let's actually do both. And as long as we set constraints, let's put them in a smart way so that we can work on what you should be working now. So for example, escalation. Here is how it works. You will focus on this one boundary. And the more you focus on this, the more elements you can generate per second, the more creative you become. At some point, there is so much that to put it on a sketch, we will actually need to draw it bigger. Because now there is so much element that if we have a small circle, we can't draw them all on the sketch. Boom, you have all of this per second. And at this point, when you have too much elements that you can create per unit of time, it becomes really a lot like this. What happens is that it becomes unconscious, it becomes subliminal, and you just have your brain, your subliminal thoughts, your subconscious mind that just take all of this into account and just gives you the best. And so you consciously, you just get the best of them. Like if we make a podium, you get the top 3, 2, 1, and you just have to choose between them. Your mind will just do the work and give you the best, and so you just have to think about them. And this is how someone who is very good at, for example, escalating, will always escalate in a way that is amazing, because he's been working so much on his creativity about escalation that first he has found sub-constraints within escalation. For example, those that I gave you in the escalation part, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now it's not just about escalation in itself, but he has even found sub-boundaries to focus on within escalation. So it's even more powerful. But even more than that, he's so creative about escalation now. He's been working on this so much that now, even if he doesn't do things that he's done in the past, even if he keeps doing new things, he has to be creative. He will always have good ideas that pop in his head because, he has so many elements that he can find per unit of time that his brain will just give him the best and he just has to choose. Basically, if you are very good at conversation and being funny, you might already be experiencing this. You talk with people, and all the time you have funny ideas that come in your head to answer, and people laugh, and it's very fun because you've been working so much in this field of creativity that now you always have good ideas that pop in your head. All right, makes sense. So what happens is that when you want to be able to manage all the things at the same time that we've seen before, boom, all of them, you want to be able to do all of them at the same time. Actually, what you have to do is to be able to find elements, like an element like this in your mind, which has multiple properties at the same time. And this is where it gets funny. It's that the boundaries, the constraints, they intersect, they have intersections. So for example, this one will be within the boundary of escalation. For example, just letting her pose and looking at her in the eyes with a smile, an amused smile, for example. I like this one, I don't know. It comes often in my interactions. It might not be the case for you because the things you will do will be dependent about you, about what is creative to you, about what is funny to you, about what feels good to you, about what is arousing to you, right? This is within the boundary of escalation. But actually, this can be as well within the constraint of fun. If you do this, it might be funny actually, depending on how you do it. So you can find elements that are within multiple constraints at the same time. And so ultimately we want to always be, for example, if you find an element that is here, for example, asking a question, you can at the same time do it in a way that it's here at the same time. It will be within questions, that's a question to her, and at the same time it's fun. Okay, and at the same time you can ask the question in a way that you look at her and you get closer and you just play with the intonations and creating this state of focus that we talked about, so that at the same time it is within escalation, right? And maybe at the same time you can make a little bonus comment at the end of the question or something in somehow, some way, so that at the same time it helps you to VIHV, or maybe you do it in a way that just gives the indication of happiness contained. VIHC, sorry, up, happiness contained. Great, so do you see how it works? And how do you come up finding those? Basically, this is this, remember what we've just done before. You will do this with escalation, so it gets extremely big, so you feel of escalation. You always have many ideas that come inside. Then, once you have done it with escalation, you will do it with fun. You will focus on exclusively of finding a lot of elements that are fun, right? Without giving a shit about escalating at the same time. Once you've done it, how likely it is that some elements here, okay, I will put it in blue. How likely it is that some elements here, they are here as well. This is more and more likely. And so at some point, what you can do is actually merge the creative field, the constraint together. And so now that you have focused on both of them independently, which you have to do at first, you have to focus independently on each of them. At some point, when you become good at them independently, you can go to the next level and start thinking, okay, now let's generate elements that are always here. Your constraint now is this. This is not escalation or fun. Your constraint is escalation and fun. Now, and the more you go, the more you become creative at generating this. And what's funny is that, for example, when you start watching the product, per unit of time within the escalation field, you can only find one element per unit. In 3 seconds, you will find one element. For the fun as well, you will maybe find one element in 20 seconds that is fun. You are really not creative. So you're thinking, well, now if I have to do both at the same time, whoa, I will need 5 minutes to find something. And in those 5 minutes, I have all the time to get anxious and to just shut even more my creativity. So it's really complicated. But after some work, actually you become even more creative in combining them than you were before by doing them independently. So do you see how it works? And at some point, this is just infinite creativity. We've been talking about this already. Infinite creativity. There is infinite number of elements that you can find. The 1 million thing, this is possible. You just have to train. And then the mind will give you, when you become good at this is the same, it will give you just the best elements with the trophy here. Yeah. And you just choose which one you want, and you always have this. And so at some point when you're extremely good, everything you do will be always VIHC, fun. You will escalate at the same time, even juggle it with questions as well. And at the same time, you will be having your alpha vibe. So you have everything at the same time. Do you see how it works? It works exactly like this. So what you will have to do now, you can see it clearly, is just focus on being more creative on one thing, and focus only on this. For example, escalation. Then sometimes you will alternate with another one. You will forget about this and focus on fun, for example. Then next time you forget about this and you focus on VIHC. Yeah. Then you forget about it and you come back to escalation. And you do like a snail. This is like a snail, like this. Where you just, let's say here is escalation. Here is fun. Up. Escalation, fun. Here is, VIHC. Here is alpha vibe. Alpha vibe. Here is questions. Yeah, and so you just do a snail like this. First you start, for example, in fun, then you go to escalation, then you go to alpha vibe, then you go to the IHC, boom, and you do like a snail, like a spiral, and you work on all of them. And every time you make a turn, actually, for example, here, when you come back to fun, you will actually somehow be able to still mix it with alpha vibe, IHC, escalation, because you have already developed those fields as well. So you start to be able to combine. And the more you go up, the more powerful you are. Do you see how it works? Well, one last thing is that we talked about this. We talked about the fact that with time, you become more creative. The number of elements per second goes up. This is long term, but there is the same thing that happens short term. So this is long term. But there is the same thing on the short term, which is what we call momentum. So for example, let's say that your baseline of creativity when it comes to escalation would be to have one ID per second, one element per second that you can find. If you train to find elements within the escalation, for example, you're approaching a woman and you focus on this, then because you focus on this, it goes up. And now you have 3 per second. So it goes up. And after, if you don't do it anymore, for example, you don't practice this for 3 days, you will go back to your baseline, which was up. So you go back to your baseline. So this is more short term. This one is called momentum. This is short term. But actually what happens is that this, you don't really go back to 1, but actually you go back to 1.2. You go back to the baseline, but even a bit better. And this is how with time, the long term improve. The baseline here, it goes up with time. Because every time you do this, at the end when you go back to the baseline, it's not exactly the baseline. It's the baseline plus 3%. And you do this each time after 100 times. Your baseline is multiplied by 5. Okay, and so you get the long term. So this is how you go about it. First, you focus on one creative field, one creative constraint that you choose in the smart way. And I will tell you later how to choose them in the smart way. You focus on this and you work exclusively on this until you have enough momentum to shift to another one, until you have enough momentum to shift to the other one. And what's funny is that every time you shift, for example, let's say you're at a party. You are at a party. Your baseline is to have one creative element, 1 per second element. This is your level of creativity within escalation. When it comes to fun, it's the same, 1 per second. So it's not much. Beginning of the party, you will focus on, be better at escalation. So you approach women and you focus exclusively on this, actually. You focus only on this. You get some momentum. So you have now 5 per second. So you're better at escalating. You have attained, let's say, your maximum of short-term potential. Your short-term potential, there is a potential. Let's make a gauge like this. Here is, let's say, your baseline. No, okay. Let's view it like this. This is your gauge. Your gauge. Here is your baseline. Okay, this is the long-term thing, the baseline. Depending on how much momentum and how much parasite thoughts you have in the head, it can either go down in the short term, either go up. What you want is create momentum so that, boom, you're at the near the top. Maybe not at the top, because the more you go up, the more it's like the logarithmic function. It goes like this. At some point, it becomes harder to get higher. Once you're more creative toward the maximum of your potential, you switch. Now you switch to something else, for example, fun, being fun, right? But now what happens is that you still have your momentum of escalation. And so you will be able, by just focusing purely on fun, it will tend to be fun elements, which are as well within the escalation field, because you've been getting more creative ET toward this field. And so what's funny is that now you can just forget about it. You can forget about the escalation field and just focus on the fun field. But magically, every element that will come to you, which is in the fun field, every element will as well be in the escalation field at the same time. So you will have this passive sexual vibe, no matter what you do, which is very fun. And it works as well long term. When you build it long term, then at some point, the way you talk, your behavior, no matter what you do when you talk with a woman, no matter what you do, it will always feel sexual. Always. Always there will be this atmosphere, this sexual arousal behind, because you've been working so much on this creative constraint that now as a default, as your baseline, everything you say will always have some part of it, which is within the escalation field. Do you see how it works? So you want to do this snail short term and long term at the same time. So short term, you just do the snail, for example, at a party. But more long term, you will, for example, for 1 month, focus on doing the snail in some way or putting more emphasis on some part of the snail. For 1 month, you will focus on just become really good at asking questions and doing small talk. Just being normal, being a normal dude. On the short term, within this long term thing, within this micro cycle of the snail, you are focusing on just being normal, doing nothing weird, just asking normal questions, basic, not doing everything flashy. But within this macro focus, when you are, let's say, at a party, you will focus on this. But then once you hit the top of your gauge, you will not go further. This is the maximum of your actual gauge. So now you switch to something else to maximize, to not lose your time. So you switch to other things. So you have your snail, you have your macro snail and your micro snail. Do you see how it works? So on the big picture for, let's say, a week or the day, you think, okay, here is what I have to focus on, this constraint. But while you will be working on it, you will take initiative to start working on other things at some point, because you already have done the job that you can do on this. So let's not just hit the top of your gauge and just be stuck on it. Let's move to other things. And actually, this is how you will keep being creative, because once you hit the top of your gauge, actually, if you keep focusing on this, you will actually lose your ability to be creative, because now you have nothing to expand toward. So you have to go toward new constraint. Remember why we set constraint, because it helps us to be more creative. When you hit the top of your gauge within a constraint, you have so many elements that appear within it. It's like infinity, that now it feels as if there was no constraint anymore. It's as if you're free within this constraint. Well, I have so many creativity within this constraint. It feels like there is millions different ways to escalate when you're in front of a woman. You're completely free. You don't see it anymore as a constraint. But so now what happens? You're back to the problem of having no constraint. And so having too much of a broad possibility. And so now you lose your creativity. Watch out the video of the TED YouTube channel about creative constraint. So now, because of this, you have to set new constraints. So you move in the snail short term. Do you see how it goes? And then at some point, when you are very creative for everything, now you go to the next level of creative constraint, about merging them together. And basically, you will do this for the rest of your life when it comes to dating. You have your long-term creativity that goes up. You get more and more and more creative. You do this by short-term, moving the snail like this. And then every time that you become creative enough, you need to set even firmer constraints. And so at some point, even when you master this, you have the alpha vibe, you have the fun, you have the escalation, you have the VIHC, you have the questions. Everything, and even the merging of all of this together, you become very creative in it. And so you feel like it's unlimited. There is unlimited ways of doing this. Now you have to set even firmer constraint within this, and you will always be zooming inside the constraint and expanding it and putting new constraint. In order to keep being creative for the rest of your life, you will never settle down with the constraint that you have mastered. You go further and further, and you always put new constraint, and you get able to zoom more and more and be able to be creative within more smaller and thicker constraints, and even within it having a million of ideas. And that will be the subject of one of the next parts, which will be exclusively about creative field and how this is the key. This will be the ultimate key to getting the results you want. This one thing will unlock everything by being smart about the constraint that we set and creating momentum, imaginary momentum within this field. Boom! Something incredible and magical will happen. Everything will fall into place, and we will explain why. But really, by doing it, by applying it, you will be shocked. Approaching women in a way that attracts them will look like the easiest thing that is possible. Really. Let's jump on to that part. See you on the next video.